Baker's got to figure out what the hell happened and fix it. Now, he's a young player in this league, and it is the job of organizations to put the right coaches around young players in order to help them succeed. The Browns obviously this year did not do that with Freddie Kitchens, even though I'm sure that one of the big reasons they hired Freddie Kitchens was for that exact express purpose, but it failed spectacularly. Freddie Kitchens is now gone, but a lot of the blame should go to people other than Freddie, justifiably, because we can bang on their offensive line, but Canty, Nick Chubb rushed for how many yards this year?
A shade under 1,500 yards.
Right. Like when the Browns finished their game, he was the rushing champ, right? Yep. And then Derrick Henry had a monster day and took it over from him. Odell had a bad year. Had 1,000 yards receiving. Myles Garrett, before he thumped Mason Rudolph on the head with his helmet, he was having the type of year we thought he could have, where he could maybe flirt with the 20-sack number, certainly blow past double-digit sacks. Yet the team was 6-10. They found a way any moment you had a little bit of hope for them to fall flat on their face, and they could not. Jenna, you were very curious about how they would deal with two things, a month of great success and a month of great failure. They couldn't get out of week one without tripping over their own headlines and their own news clippings. And so Freddie's now gone, which means the scapegoat's gone. The question for Baker Mayfield is, what way is your NFL career going to go? I still believe in him. I still think he can be a high-level NFL quarterback. But this year gets to be a mulligan for him, and they can blame Freddie. If he's terrible next season, then guess what? Cleveland, once again, for the 14th time since they've come back to Cleveland, is looking for a quarterback in the draft again, whether they want to admit it or not. He didn't have a bad year this year. He had a horrifying year this year. And so that is what needs to change for Cleveland. Their number one overall pick, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, needs to get back to looking anything close to that.
Yeah, if Baker doesn't have a bounce-back year in 2020, not only will they be looking for another quarterback, they're going to be looking for another general manager, too. Because this all starts with John Dorsey's decision to hire Freddie Kitchens in the first place, a job that he wasn't qualified for. Going into the 2018 year, Freddie Kitchens was the running backs coach, and when they fired Hugh Jackson, they elevated him to offensive coordinator, and Greg Williams was the interim head coach. And they said since Baker had so much success in the second half of his rookie year, they were going to have Freddie Kitchens be the head coach because they were afraid that another team would hire him because they thought he did such a great job as the offensive coordinator. But the reality is Freddie Kitchens was put in a no-win situation by John Dorsey. Now, you can say it's because John Dorsey learned his lesson in Kansas City when they hired Andy Reid, and Andy Reid became the most important figure in that organization. They were going to decide to move on from John Dorsey. He didn't make that same mistake in Cleveland. But you also didn't give yourself a chance with the hire that you made as the head coach because the personalities on that team were too much for Freddie Kitchens to handle. He couldn't effectively set the agenda for the team, and that's where it starts. If you're going to have a young team, try to find a way to make a playoff push.
I said early on when they were making this coaching, searching the far and wide and all of it, I said Mike McCarthy was great. They brought him in and then they let him go, and maybe it was that reason. Maybe Dorsey had flashbacks of what happened in Kansas City. But they need someone to be able to corral the troops, if you will, a main voice that's not going to be friends with the players, but it's going to sort of have that discipline that they lacked on and off the field. What type of coach do you think they would use and need in Cleveland?
I feel very similarly to the Browns coaching search as I do the Cowboys coaching search in that I do not want to take a risk. I want someone who has been an NFL head coach because what you can't have is Baker Mayfield have to go through 4 head coaches in his first 4 years in the NFL. So Mike McCarthy, even though they passed on the first time around, that's an interesting name. The same guy I mentioned for the Cowboys, Leslie Frazier. I don't think Josh McDaniels would go within 100 miles of Cleveland, but someone with some coaching experience in the NFL that you know is not going to be a disaster. Because if you hire the wrong guy this time, Hugh was his first coach for Baker. Then you had the interim. Then Freddie for a year. Then if you hire a guy who it's like, oh, my God, he has no idea how to relate to NFL players, how to control lock, any of those things, you've got no chance of being successful in this league if you have 4 different head coaches in your first 5 years. So I don't think they can go for upside, Canty. I think they have to go for certainty in Cleveland because they're not a rebuilding team, because they do have a lot of talent on this roster.
No, they do, and you need an adult in the room.
Yes.
I think that's the most important part of it, and I'm right there with you. You don't need a coach that's got boom or bust potential. You need a coach that can come in and have a high floor. Know what you get from that guy. Know that he's going to be the same guy every day, but most importantly, know that his messaging is going to be the same to the team week in and week out. That's the thing that Cleveland was missing the entire year.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.